Welcome to Workstyle Stories, because life changes and every life is different. Work needs to respect that. And this week, we're talking about how a work style needs to evolve and can evolve over a long period of time with different changes that happen to our lives. And to talk about that, I'm joined by the wonderful Jane Hunter, who joins us. Hello. But Jane, before we get into the detail on your evolving work style, would you mind just telling us very briefly who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Great to be here, Al. Thanks so much. So I am a marketing consultant. I am currently in the United States, in Rhode Island, the smallest state of the 50. But typically I'm in London, where I've lived for the last 23 years.
So you're in the States at the moment. So working from the States, and what sort of work are you doing?
Yeah, so I have been working from the States actually a little bit, but predominantly I've been here to spend time with my mother, who's about
Okay.
to turn 80 and who had some
Wow.
business and health problems that I needed to
Okay.
support her with.
Okay. But the work that you would do is marketing consultancy, is that right?
Yeah, typically marketing
Okay.
consultancy, and I've now branched out a little bit into diversity, equity, and inclusion with some former business school classmates.
Awesome. So let's so 23 years in the UK. Was that a work move that brought you to the UK from the US? What sort of work were you doing, and what's your kind of career been over those 20 odd years?
So it's a little bit longer than that now. I'm really dating myself now. So yes, it was a work move that brought me
Yeah.
to the UK. I was working
Okay.
for Guinness in the US, and I was transferred to the UK. Thought I would be there 5 years, and it's 23 years later. But in terms of my ever evolving work journey, the first 20 years of my career were spent in very traditional corporate roles. The last two, one was a global role, one was a regional role across Europe, and required a lot of travel. And I love to travel, but in 2000, I had our son, and in early 2003, I had our daughter. And in 2008 was my first, it did take 20 years, everybody, but it was my first sort of aha moment of something's got to give, something has to evolve. And at that point, I left my traditional corporate job and went and worked for a small children's food startup. And in doing that, what I was able to do was to negotiate the entire month of August off, in addition to regular holidays. So what that allowed me to do, I didn't have two children to not see them. And that allowed me to be more present lives, but also critically, with that month of August off, it allowed me to spend, and the children and my husband, to spend more time in the US. Already at that time, both of our mothers were widows, and we wanted our children to be able to spend more time with their grandmothers, to have stronger relationships with their cousins, and that really, really a gift. And I did that until 2013. And at that point, really felt like I needed to evolve again and make another shift. The children were in school and, around less, but they were around, they needed more, and I felt that they needed me on their time, and I needed to be available for that. So at that point, I evolved to working term time only. And that is what I have done pretty much until this point. And it's about to evolve again. And I'm not really sure exactly in which way, but our youngest is off to university in September, and the oldest is already in his second year at university over here in the United States. So it will be changing again.
Yeah, fascinating. So in terms of the shift that you made then to be more available for your children on their terms, on their schedule, so working term time, I'm assuming that you became a consultant at that point versus being able to negotiate that with with an employer. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. That
Okay.
when I became a consultant, and that is, also was, part of Hawksby as well.
Yeah. The negotiation of August's off with the children's food brand is quite something for its time. Like I imagine that there weren't many people asking for whole months off in negotiating their employment contracts in 2008. How did that go down?
Well, it actually was relatively straightforward, believe it or not. At
Okay.
that point, 20 years of marketing experience, and they
Yeah.
were ahead of marketing.
Okay.
And when I interviewed with the board, they said, you know, I can't pay you the salary that you're, now.
Hmm.
But what would it take to get you? And I said, I'd like to work 4 days a week, and in
Hmm.
addition to holiday, and they said yes. So I'd love to tell you that I was
Brilliant.
some kind of negotiator, but that's really how it went down.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one.
And I think they were.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it worked for both parties, which of course is the best possible outcome of a negotiation like this. But also, I think credit to you for at that point in time having the um, clarity to say, look, this is what's important to me. This is the time I need to carve out for my life, and this is therefore what I really want in terms of work fitting around that, which is something that everybody who's adopting Workstyle kind of has to get their head around in the first instance. Is what are the things that are important to me that work needs to fit around, and how can I find work that does that? So it's almost like because you'd prioritize that, you were able to have the conversation with that company and find each other in that sense, and create a win-win situation, which is the ideal case, I guess.
Yeah, it really was the ideal case, but you're absolutely right. You do have to have that moment of what is really important to me. And I
Yeah.
think that, 20 years in the traditional corporate culture, you know,
Mm.
keep climbing, keep climbing, keep climbing. I was very much in that mode.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I hadn't had children, I'm sure I would have stayed in
Carry
that
on.
mode
Yeah.
for a
Mm.
lot longer.
Mm.
Probably not
So
forever. I'd like to think that I would have woken up even without them, but they definitely helped me with that.
Interesting. So now you're at a point, another crossroads. This is really interesting, and I think we're going to talk about this in the Q&A hopefully. But you're at this crossroads now where you're going to have to redefine your work style again. So with your children going to university and things changing for you, have you given thought now to what your work style is going to look like? And really interested to hear what you think you might prioritize in this next chapter.
It's a really good question, and it's one I'm doing a lot of thinking about now, and I don't have a definitive answer, which is really nice because things do continue to evolve. Have spent 9 days with my mother, who's about to be 80.
Yeah.
It's very clear to me that my evolving work style will involve spending more time here in the US, and
Yeah.
more time with her and helping her. I help run her business, which is a farm, remotely already. But it's a fairly large undertaking, in particular for somebody who is almost age,
Yeah.
80, and aging is not for the faint-hearted.
Well, that sounds brilliant. Sounds like you're going to be busy, you're going to be mobile, and taking your work with you everywhere, which is, of course, exactly how it should be. We've run out of time for our interview, Jane, so I'm going to say thank you very much for sharing your work style story. We've been Workstyle Stories. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you.